Writing, my best friend's mom asked when we were getting married. She smiled and asked, "Well, when?" Some moments divide your life into two parts, the person you were before them and the person you become after. Mine happened on an ordinary Sunday afternoon, surrounded by laughter, the smell of homemade food, and people who had unknowingly become my family. Then my best friend's mother looked directly at us with a smile that carried years of quiet hope, and simply asked when we were getting married. Before I could laugh it off or pretend I hadn't heard her, the woman sitting beside me smiled back just as gently and asked, "Well, when?" In that single heartbeat, the world I had carefully built around friendship, fear, and silence began to fall apart. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance, friendships can become forever, and love sometimes waits patiently for years. Please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us share more emotional stories that remind us how powerful love, forgiveness, and hope can truly be. I had known Emma for almost 20 years. We met on the first day of middle school when I accidentally spilled my lunch across the hallway floor. While everyone else laughed or walked around me, she quietly knelt beside me and helped pick everything up without saying a single word. That simple act of kindness became the foundation of a friendship that survived exams, heartbreaks, college applications, failed dreams, and the unpredictable twists of adulthood. We became the kind of friends who understood each other's silence better than most people understood words. There were no secrets between us, except perhaps the biggest one of all, the feelings neither of us had ever been brave enough to admit. Emma's family slowly became my family too. Her father taught me how to fix things around the house, because mine had left when I was 9. Her younger brother treated me like an older sibling, and her mother never let me leave their house hungry. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, and ordinary weekends were all shared around the same dinner table. Somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a guest and started feeling like I belonged there. Still, I never crossed the invisible line that separated friendship from love. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was terrified. I had watched enough beautiful friendships disappear after failed relationships to know how fragile trust could be. Losing Emma as a girlfriend would hurt, but losing her as my best friend would destroy me. So I buried every feeling deep inside and convinced myself that protecting our friendship was enough. Life moved forward the way it always does. Emma became an elementary school teacher whose students adored her because she saw potential in children everyone else overlooked. I worked long hours as an architect, designing homes for strangers while secretly wondering if I would ever build one for myself. We supported each other's dreams, celebrated promotions, comforted each other after disappointments, and remained inseparable despite busy schedules. People constantly assumed we were dating. Friends asked why we had never given love a chance. Co-workers joked that we acted like an old married couple. Even complete strangers sometimes smiled at us with that knowing expression reserved for couples deeply in love. We always laughed it off, exchanging the same rehearsed answer that we were just best friends. After enough years, even I started believing the lie. Then, life reminded us that nothing lasts forever. Emma's father suffered a massive heart attack one rainy evening. The phone rang just after midnight, and within minutes I was racing to the hospital. Those endless hours, sitting beside Emma in the waiting room, changed something inside me. Watching her hold herself together, while quietly breaking apart, made me realize how much of my own heart was tied to hers. I wasn't there because I was obligated to help. I was there because the thought of her facing pain alone felt unbearable. Her father survived, but recovery was slow and difficult. For months, I spent nearly every evening helping around their house. I repaired broken cabinets, mowed the lawn, drove him to medical appointments, and cooked dinners whenever Emma stayed late at school. None of it felt like sacrifice. It simply felt natural, like taking care of people I loved. One evening, after everyone else had gone to bed, Emma's father looked at me with tired but grateful eyes. He thanked me for treating his family as though it were my own. Then he quietly admitted something that stayed with me forever. He said that fathers spend their entire lives hoping someone will love their daughters the way they deserve, and that he had never worried about Emma because he had watched me choose her happiness over my own. For nearly 2 decades, I couldn't answer him. My throat tightened, and all I managed was a small smile before leaving the room. His words haunted me for weeks. Not long afterward, my own life fell apart. The company I had worked for announced unexpected layoffs after losing several major contracts. I walked into work expecting another ordinary Monday, and walked out carrying a cardboard box containing years of memories. At 33 years old, I suddenly found myself unemployed, uncertain, and questioning everything I thought I had built. I tried hiding it from everyone, especially Emma, but she noticed immediately. She always noticed. She began bringing homemade meals to my apartment, under the excuse that she had cooked too much. She encouraged me to keep applying for jobs when rejection emails piled up. She reminded me that one difficult season did not define an entire life. Months passed before I finally found another position. Smaller than my previous one, but filled with people who appreciated my work. Looking back, I realized that Emma had carried me through those months, with nothing more than quiet faith and endless encouragement. The years continued slipping by. Our friends got married, bought houses, and started families. Wedding invitations became regular reminders of the future. Neither of us seemed willing to discuss. Sometimes I caught Emma watching children playing in parks with a thoughtful smile. Sometimes she caught me staring at engagement rings displayed in jewelry store windows before I quickly looked away. Neither of us ever said what we were really thinking. Everything changed during her mother's 60th birthday celebration. Their backyard overflowed with relatives, neighbors, old friends, and endless laughter. Children chased balloons across the grass, while adults shared stories that grew funnier with every retelling. It felt like one of those perfect afternoons you wish could last forever. As Dare ended, someone began teasing Emma about still being single. Another relative jokingly pointed toward me. Everyone laughed. Then her mother looked at us with the warmest smile I had ever seen. She asked when we were finally getting married. The entire backyard fell strangely quiet. I opened my mouth, ready with the familiar joke that we were just friends. Before I could speak, Emma smiled softly, looked directly at me, and simply asked, "Well, when?" For a second, I honestly wondered if I had imagined it, but she kept looking at me, not nervously, not jokingly, hopefully. Every excuse I had repeated for 20 years disappeared. Every fear suddenly seemed much smaller than the possibility of losing the chance, standing right in front of me. Instead of answering immediately, I asked if we could take a walk. We wandered toward the old neighborhood park where we had spent countless evenings growing up. The swings still squeaked, the same way they always had. The enormous oak tree still stretched across the playground, like a silent guardian watching generations come and go. We sat on a familiar bench without speaking for several minutes. Finally, Emma admitted something that left me speechless. She confessed that she had fallen in love with me years ago, but eventually convinced herself that I only saw her as family. Every relationship she tried ended because no one else ever made her feel as safe, respected, or understood as I did. She had spent years hoping I would someday realize what everyone else already seemed to know. I laughed through tears because I had spent those same years believing exactly the opposite. 20 years, 2 people, 1 love, endless silence. The tragedy wasn't that we didn't love each other. The tragedy was that fear had stolen years we could have shared. That night I walked her home under a sky filled with stars brighter than I could remember seeing before. Standing outside her front door, I finally stopped hiding behind caution. I told her everything I had buried since middle school, every jealous moment, every almost confession, every reason I believed she deserved someone better than me. She listened without interrupting. Then she quietly reminded me that love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone who keeps choosing you through ordinary days, painful seasons, failures, victories, and everything in between. The following weekend, I returned to the same park, carrying a small ring that had belonged to my grandmother. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't fashionable, but it represented generations of faithful love. Emma didn't let me finish the proposal before saying yes. When we returned to her parents' house together, her mother burst into tears before we even reached the front porch. Somehow, mothers always know. Her father hugged me harder than anyone ever had. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what home felt like. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. There were no luxury venues or celebrity photographers. Friends decorated the community hall by hand. Neighbors baked desserts. My coworkers volunteered to handle the music. Emma's students filled handmade jars with handwritten wishes for our future. It wasn't perfect. It was real, and that made it beautiful. Years later, whenever someone asks how we met, we still tell the story about spilled food in a middle school hallway. People usually laugh. What they don't see are all the invisible moments that followed. The hospital waiting rooms, the career disappointments, the family dinners, the silent sacrifices, the thousands of ordinary days that slowly built an extraordinary love. Looking back now, I realize the greatest relationships rarely begin with fireworks. They begin with kindness repeated so consistently that one day you suddenly realize you've been building forever without even noticing. If our story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in true love, leave your thoughts below, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more emotional stories that remind us kindness and patience can change lives. Special request before this story ends. Tell us in the comments, have you ever loved someone for years without telling them? Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it waits quietly through seasons of fear, hoping courage will finally arrive. Sometimes the person you've been searching for has been walking beside you all along, cheering for your dreams, carrying your burdens, and choosing you in 1,000 unnoticed ways. Life is too short to let fear write your future. Speak the words that matter, cherish the people who stay through your hardest days, and never underestimate the quiet power of friendship that grows into lifelong love. In the end, the happiest chapters often begin with the simplest question, spoken by someone who already sees the truth long before we do ourselves. Sometimes all it takes to change 2 lives forever is one loving smile, one unexpected question, and the courage to finally answer it.